We should be live right now. We should be live. Mic's good. Audio's good. Video's good. Everything looks good. Yeah, let's start with the intro. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a new episode of Lunch and Debates. I'm your fellow co-host Dibo, not with my fellow co-host Matt. Still away from the podcast due to personal reasons. He will be back soon in the meantime. But as of now, and for the near future, it's going to be a solo show with me, yours truly. Now, if you guys haven't noticed already, it's a completely different setup for this episode. And because it's going to be a one-man show, I decided to, and with our producer Seth, to switch it up a little bit. So, right now we got the lively room, solo room for the time being. We got the monitor right here, obviously the mic right here. I got my setup right here. Can't forget the water right here. So we got everything we need right now. A little bit different compared to our usual spot to record, but I'm loving it so far, and I hope you guys too. But before we get in, I just want to say to our viewers, how y'all doing, man? How y'all doing? Summertime's kicking around. Obviously, the NBA Finals is wrapped up. For soccer and other sports, they're still kicking. We got MLB, WNBA still thriving. So, I mentioned soccer before. We got the Euros kicking on. Phenomenal tournament so far. Lots of banging games. The Denmark-England game, that was a banger too yesterday. Poor performance from England. We'll see how they do in their last match of the group stage. And yeah, man, I'm just excited to see how that tournament pans out. And also the Copa America match. Opening match between Argentina and Canada started last night, kicking the tournament off. Argentina went 2-0. Very shaky from Argentina in the final third. Lots of missed chances, especially from Messi. But they pulled off the win, got the 3 points, so great for them. Canada, they put up a great fight. Jesse March in his first major game as the new manager of Canada's national team. They put up a great fight. So as a neutral watching it was a very entertaining game to watch. And I'm hoping Copa America can have that same type of flair, that same type of entertainment that the Euros have given us so far. Salute to the U.S. Hopefully we'll give a great performance against Bolivia to kick our group stage campaign off. And yeah, man, hoping for the best from there. Now, for this episode, quick agenda rundown. Is going to be mainly an NBA-based episode. Enjoying it. I'm going to enjoy it. Off-season's about to kick off. Post-NBA Finals, we got the draft next week on Wednesday. We'll see how that goes down. Free agency's around the corner, too, as well. It's going to start in the next 2 weeks. So, hopefully, we can get a lot of more breaking news when it comes to signings, big trades, all that good stuff. And yeah, man, again, a quick rundown for the agenda. We're going to get into the Lakers hiring JJ Redick as their new head coach to start this episode off. And then with more coaching news, we'll talk about the Pistons firing Monty Williams. And then going down the line, we'll talk about the first big trade in this NBA offseason. The Thunder getting Alex Caruso in that deal, straight up trade. Bulls getting Josh Giddey. We'll talk about those details. And, a little bit moving towards free agency, we'll talk about Malik Monk and Pascal Siakam getting re-signed to the respective teams. Quick rundown on those two signings. And then lastly, for our main segment of today's episode for the podcast, top 5 teams to challenge the Boston Celtics for the title next season. Quick rundown, top 5. You know how that goes. And yeah, man, I'm excited. I am really excited, man. It is going to be a fun one for sure. All right. Ooh. Excuse me. This is kind of boring right now. But I got it. Okay. We're good. All right. So for the first segment, let's talk about The Lakers hiring JJ Redick as their not former, as their new head coach. According to Woj, 4-year deal. Obviously, with the news of the rumors of the Lakers reaching towards Dan Hurley, obviously that didn't work out. The UConn men's head coach, he rejected a 6-year, $70 million deal with the Lakers, turned that down, and he's still coaching UConn for the near future. So, with that being out the way, obviously with the rumors before the hiring piling up with JJ Redick, the interest was there with multiple reports confirming that. Ultimately, the Lakers, they got their guy, and we'll see what the first-year man can do with this contending Lakers team. About this move, in my opinion, I just really don't like it. And I talked about this before a couple episodes ago when the Dan Hurley news was swarming around. I just don't like putting a first-year head coach in a position of coaching a win-now roster, quotation marks win now, when you have pieces within that team that are not compatible enough to help out a first-year head coach. And you add along the fact that you have LeBron James and Anthony Davis, two guys who you need to contend year after year when you still have them. And with Redick being a first-year head coach in a big market, you're going to get all the media attention being put towards you. If the ship doesn't sail smoothly immediately, he's going to be the first one the media targets if the Lakers start off on the wrong foot next season. And it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. We've seen this before, especially with Darvin Ham, Luke Walton, Frank Vogel. If you're a first-year head coach coaching the Lakers, a young head coach, especially when you have LeBron on your team, you're going to get most of the blame. And when we're talking about Redick, a guy who I'm going to add, because I don't hate Redick at all. I think he's a brilliant basketball mind. But at the same time, he has zero experience being an assistant or just coaching in general in the NBA. And I don't really know why. I don't know the thought process, Jeannie Buss and the rest of the Lakers front office when they decided to give this man this position. I'm sorry, but he's not qualified to coach this team moving forward. And if I'm wrong, I'll come on here and say that I was completely wrong. I disrespect Redick in the Lakers' decision-making process, and I'll cut my losses there. But I'm thinking in my mind the possibilities of this ending smoothly, of Redick completing his first-year contract with the Lakers, and I just don't see it. Sure, he has a good relationship with LeBron. We've seen it before on the podcast. They have a good connection with each other. But podcasting and all the off-the-court stuff, that doesn't compare to knowing how to manage the game on the court, knowing how to utilize the right rotations on the court, knowing to maximize your players on the court. Yeah, I really just don't see a possibility that JJ Redick can succeed in his position with the Lakers. I really don't. And I'm going to get on Rob Pelinka too, their GM. He has to get it right this offseason. He has to get it right. As a GM who has a very, very shaky resume with this Lakers team over the years, especially the past couple seasons with the Russell Westbrook trade to use as a huge example, you have to get it right. You have to bring in the best players available, even with the limited cap space you do have. Now, I know they have a lot of first-round picks that they can work with to bring in new talent this offseason, but you have to bring in the best possible roster to help your first year head coach out. Because if you throw Redick in with the same amount of quality as this year's team, a middling playing roster, then it's not gonna work out well. We can crap on Darvin Ham and the job he did with the Lakers as a head coach, but at the same time he has a lot more experience in coaching than Redick. Again, this man has not coached at a professional level in the NBA before. No experience. No experience at all. Ooh. Sorry. My fault for sneezing. Damn. Allergies. My fault. Ooh. Okay, are we done? Are we done? Okay, I think we might be done. Okay, let me continue. Shoot, I lost my train of thought. Oh man. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right. All right. Come on. Okay. We're good. I'm sorry. My apologies, y'all. But again, when you're comparing Ham and Redick, Ham has so much more experience compared to JJ, and Redick obviously he played in the league. He most recently was an analyst with ESPN, but that doesn't equate to on the court success. In the NBA, as a head coach, it's a completely different ball game than just analyzing and playing in the actual league. It's a whole different stratosphere. So I'm not sure how this is gonna pan out. I don't think it's gonna pan out really for this Lakers team. 7 head coaches in 13 years for the Lakers. And quick fact right here, the Lakers, since Phil Jackson's retirement in 2011, they have not had a head coach stay more than 3 years with the team. That's the environment JJ Redick's about to walk into, a very cutthroat environment. I'm wishing the best for him, but I just don't see how this is going to pan out well for him and this Lakers team. We'll see, though. We will see. All right, moving on to more coaching news. The Detroit Pistons have fired Monty Williams after just 1 year with the team. Monty, with his contract, 5 years and $65 million remaining. That is more than $13 million per year. Obviously, when he was hired by Detroit, they awarded him with becoming the highest paid coach in NBA history. And obviously, you fast forward 1 year later in the summertime, it proved to be a massive failure. Now, with this news, this recent news, the main narrative revolving around Detroit and Monty Williams' tender was that nobody could coach this Detroit team. The Pistons are a horrendous organization. They make crappy decision after crappy decision. And Monty Williams should be thanking to the man above, referring to Stephen A. in his point he made on First Take. He should be referring to the man above that he does not have to coach this team for any longer. And to the people that are saying that, I understand where you're coming from. I've crapped on Detroit in the past. They are one of the worst run organizations in sports by far, and they have been for well than over a decade now, which is completely fair to point that out. But last season, if you actually tuned in to Detroit Pistons games, which most of the NBA community and the media did not, which Okay, I don't really blame you. But when you watch the Pistons play with Monty Williams, his coaching job was one of the worst I have ever seen in my entire life watching basketball. The amount of poor decision making that was being made by him throughout that season was horrendous. It was horrendous, absolutely. Let's talk about him starting Killian Hayes over Jaden Ivey for the most part of the season. Hell, even the mismanagement of Jaden Ivey's development last year was terrible. Whether it was putting him on a bench role, giving him limited minutes, not giving him enough on-ball possession, staggering him in cage minutes throughout these games. The mismanagement of Jaden Ivey and him stunting his development was one of the biggest reasons why he should have been fired. And that doesn't reach the surface on the amount of poor coaching he did, whether it was playing guys like Isaiah Livers, who was one of the worst players in the entire league, 20 minutes a game, giving him a good amount of starts. The all-bench lineups, especially in crunch time, completely ruining the momentum of games when they were completely winnable for some of them. 11-man rotations when you had one of the worst, if not the worst, roster talent-wise in the entire league. Like, consistently lying to press conferences and showing a complete lack of effort as a coach. I'm going to put this into perspective. Dwayne Casey, in his last year before he went to front office, with Cade Cunningham only playing around, 15 games that season, he still managed to get more wins than Monty Williams in his time as a head coach for the Pistons. That shows you how bad of a job Monty did during his time in Detroit. I honestly thought Detroit, before the season started, I thought they were going to contend for a playing spot. Granted, it was one of the two worst playing spots, 9-10 range, especially 10 range. But with the team that was being placed, having another top 5 pick in Azar Thompson, already having young talent in Marcus Sasser, Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart within that team, I thought with that disposal of young assets, poor fit or not, I thought they would at least be contending for a playing spot. And for Monty to only manage 14 wins with that unit, having the longest losing streak in NBA history, 28 games, was winless in November, had an 0-14 record, one of the 13 teams to do that, have a winless month in a season. Yeah, I agree with what Cade Cunningham said in one of the post-game conferences when he said, we're not that bad, we can't be that bad. Yes, Cade, y'all not that bad. And I know exactly why. I know exactly one of the main people who were the reasons that made y'all bad. He was Monty Williams. And thank God that the Pistons cleaned house. They're gonna have a new head coach, and they're gonna have a new GM with Troy Weaver being fired this offseason too. So with the aftermath of having the worst season in franchise history, one of the worst seasons for a team in NBA history, period, it's just the right move to get on a completely clean slate, to rebuild, start over, because with how the team was moving, you could not head into next season with both Troy Weaver and especially Monty Williams as your GM and head coach. And I'm going to continue to harp on Monty because he didn't care. He didn't care. He was just in it for the big contract. And I'm wishing the best for Monty still. I believe he should take a year or two off from basketball just to get his mind right. Hopefully better offers can come down the line. Because with what I saw from that Pistons team last year, he was completely out of it. Completely out of it. So For Detroit, you've made a lot of poor decisions, especially over these past 15 years. But to get rid of Monty, completely start over, get fresh blood in, hopefully they can take this young Pistons core to new heights, rebuild around them, to completely wipe the slate clean, start over when you clearly knew you messed up, is a great sign moving forward. And I'm not sure what I want to pronounce his name correctly. Excuse me if I don't. Trayon Langdon, their new president, is going to cook up in the near future, getting new guys in. But it's way better than doing the same stuff over and over with Monty Williams as your head coach. So I'm hoping the best for Detroit in their situation right now. I'm very interested to see what they do in the next coming months. We'll see, man. We will see. Now, moving on, we'll get into the big trade revolving around the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Chicago Bulls. And with the trade details, it's a straight up trade. The Bulls, they get Josh Giddey. The Thunder, they get Alex Caruso. Again, a 1-for-1 trade. I got a lot to say about this move, man. I really do. Let's start off with Chicago. I don't even know where to start. I'm going to look into a couple quotes that Woj said when he announced this trade. The details wrong around the trade. I got a couple quotes right now with me real quick. Comes with all-star potential, Josh Giddey. I don't know about that. And I was a Josh Giddey believer at one point in his career. I never saw him as a perennial all-star. Even like a potential all-star, in my opinion. So for apparently the Bulls front office to say about that, I'm not sure. And I have one more quote. The Bulls were determined to find a playmaker to replace Lonzo Ball. Now, Lonzo Ball obviously has his flaws as a player. Hopefully he can get back soon to the league healthy. I know he's been fighting the injury bug for the past couple of years. When you compare Lonzo Ball to Josh Giddey, is Josh Giddey as good of a playmaker as Lonzo Ball? No. He has a weak ball handle, and when it comes to his playmaking, I think it's very overrated, and it's largely due to his limitations as a shooter and a shot creator. If you're a point guard in this league and you can't be able to produce your own shot, get buckets by yourself, the playmaking's not going to matter that much. It's not going to matter that much. And with Lonzo, at least when he's off the ball, he's very good. And he's a very, in his past 2 or 3 seasons when he was healthy, he was a very dependable three-point shooter. Josh Giddey is a liability on the perimeter. He is a big liability. And defensively, if you want to talk about that, Lonzo, on his day, is a great on-ball defender. Fantastic wing defender. Josh Giddey, he's one of the worst in the league. He is one of the worst defending guards in the league by far. He can't guard the point of attack. This move for Chicago puzzles my mind in so many ways. The fact that you traded away Alex Caruso, who is an elite role player, can do so many things for a contending team, who previously was rumored to be traded in exchange for one, even multiple first-round picks. For you to absolutely get no draft capital from a team with the most first-round draft picks in NBA history, And to get a raw prospect in Josh Giddey who needs the ball to succeed when you have a guy like Kobe White who had his best season as a professional basketball player with the ball in his hands, being the primary ball handler. He had White could have had a most improved player award this season. He was that good. It was one of the biggest surprises in the NBA season, Kobe White's development. And because of that, it was because he had the ball in his hands. He had the usage rate to operate within the offense. I honestly don't see a future where Kobe White and Josh Giddey can work together in a starting backcourt. Because you have to put Giddey at the one. And Kobe White, he had his best season of his career at the one. And his worst ball was at the two. So I don't know how you can work that out. And they're both not good defenders too. On a team that is already one of the worst defending units in the entire league, like out of that entire rotation, only Ayo Dosunmu and Patrick Williams are the only legit defenders within that team. The only ones. It just boggles my mind the amount of mismanagement within the Bulls organization when it comes to their assets. It's so poor. You had a golden opportunity to get important value for an elite role player, a great valuable player in Alex Caruso, and you didn't do that. And now you have Josh Giddey, a guy that needs the ball again to succeed best as a player, within an already clunky guard group where Kobe White, he also needs the ball to succeed too. So I don't know what direction that Chicago is taking here. I'm guessing they're gonna fully tank, which it's too late right now. You could have gotten a lot better value in better draft classes, but hey, I'm glad you own up to your mistakes. Getting rid of the big three of DeRozan, Levine, and Vucevic, getting whatever value you can get for all of them. Well, not DeRozan because he's gonna be a free agent this year, unless they want to do a sign and trade with his bird rights still intact. But I guess the only positive thing with the Giddey move is that they've decided to go on the rebuilding side, which we've been screaming, especially on this podcast, we've been screaming for them to do so. It's just that, again, the mismanagement of their roster and with important pieces, it's just not there. It's really not there, man. I don't know. If you're a Bulls fan, there's just a lot of things to not be happy about, and this move is no different. No different. But yeah, I guess we'll talk about the Thunder. I mean, I'm a little bit worried about the combination of both Caruso and Lou Dort in a starting lineup. I think down the line in a potential playoff series, teams can afford to sag off on both Caruso and Lou Dort in the half-court offense on the three-point line, putting more of their attention on Shea and other guys as well, such as J-Dub and Shat. But for Sam Presti to give away pretty much nothing, the only asset you were able to give away was a guy who wasn't going to be in their long-term plans, to get an elite role player who is a Swiss Army knife, can defend multiple positions, he had a 40% clip from the three-point line last year. Great rebounder, great hustle guy, great locker room guy. For you to get a guy like Caruso within a young team that is ready to contend for an NBA championship while giving away zero value is impressive. and absolute fleece. I mean, even if it's just a 1 year rental and Caruso potentially wants to broaden his horizons, move to another team, get more money, you give up nothing in the trade. Nothing. So with this, it's a very low risk, high reward move for this Thunder team. And when you look at their defensive personnel on the wings, Lou Dort, J Dub, SGA, Casey Wallace off the bench, and now Caruso to that perimeter defense. That is one of the nastiest defending cores in the entire league on paper. On a team that was very good defensively last season. And if they were to sign Caruso to a long-term extension, it would be around 4 years, $80 million. That type of contract. And that's very affordable for this Thunder team especially. Just an A-plus move all around. Getting in Caruso, man. Like, they basically got an elite role player in their rotation for basically nothing. Pennies. How did they let this happen, Chicago? I don't know. I'm not sure. You might have to investigate it. But for the Thunder, like, don't take the any day of the week, any given day. It just boggles my mind, man. I wonder what Chicago's gonna do next because it's just comedy. Like it's really just comedy from them at this point, man. Bulls fans are praying for y'all. Hey, I'll say this: Chicago Sky in the WNBA, they're a fun team. So if you want to focus on the ladies in that area, hey, Angel Reese's hooping, Candy Carter's hooping, Cardoso's hooping. A lot of fun players on that unit so far. So, hey, I'm about to put attention to that team moving forward than the Bulls. Because I don't know what the Bulls are doing at this point. Just a thought from me, to give a little bit of support for this group. But, yeah. Moving on to our next segment. We're going to talk about Malik Monk and Pascal Siakam. Both of their deals to re-sign with their respective teams. We'll go into Malik Monk's deal first. 4 years, $78 million with Sacramento. Phenomenal move for the Kings to give a long-term extension to their second-best shot creator in Monk, one of the best, if not the best, six men in the entire league. A guy that is so important to them when it comes to their half-court offense. Is very huge, and for him to be on a very acceptable contract moving forward, $19 million a year for a guy like Monk, it's great for this team when it comes to roster building moving forward. When Monk got injured towards the end of the regular season, you could clearly see the huge loss of Monk and his impact on the floor because De'Aaron Fox, he wasn't as efficient. Had to put up a ton of tough shots in the half court. Sabonis, he became less effective. And when you have a guy like Sabonis, you don't really want him to be your secondary playmaker. You want him the guy that is your main screener to focus more on doing the dirty work, get the rebounds, setting his guys up, especially when it comes to the king screens, the DHO game, having guys like Fox run downhill, leaving shooters like Keegan Murray, Harrison Barnes, Kevin Huerter when he's healthy open like that when it comes to the screening game from Sabonis. And when you watch the Kings those last couple weeks and in the playing games, especially the playing game versus New Orleans, his presence was greatly missed. So for Monk and the Kings, it's a big signing move for them moving forward. Now, does it make them contenders? No, obviously not. They still have a ton of work to deal with, especially when it comes to getting more offensive firepower, especially when it comes to getting more defensive help. But it's a good start for them. It's a very good start. Okay, 35 minutes already. 1.5 an hour into this. Good. Second one we'll get into Pascal Siakam re-signing with the Indiana Pacers. A 4-year, $189.5 million deal. Mission accomplished for Indiana. I mean, the main reason why you got a guy like Siakam to be with this unit, this young Pacers team, is to contend, is to win right now. With the unit you already have, having a guy like Halliburton taking the leap he's been taking over the past year, other young pieces like a Andrew Nembhard, already got Miles Turner. He's not young, but he's still very valuable to this team. Ben Shepherd as well, coming off the bench. He was very impressive in his minutes in these playoffs. Even raw pieces like a Jarris Walker, who they got in the first round, we'll see if he can develop. For you to trade 3 firsts for Siakam, and in return have a very productive Pascal, and even make the conference finals the first time since 2014, injury luck be damned, it's mission accomplished. And for this Pacers team, I know they didn't win anything. Heartbreaking loss to Boston in the conference finals. Obviously, Tyrese, he couldn't play the last 2 games of that series. Lost the East season tournament final to the Lakers. It was still a great success for Indiana moving forward. It was a great leap for them to get that playoff experience, to again have guys like Andrew Nembhard step up when needed to. He could potentially become a star, Andrew Nembhard. I really liked what he did in these playoffs. It's a great young core moving forward. Now, do I see them becoming a consistent contender in these next few years? I'm not sure, even with the much weaker East compared to the West. But for this Pacers team, they're still going to be a respectable unit, especially when you have Siakam racked up long term. I mean, in these playoffs, when Tyrese was struggling, he was not being as aggressive as he needed to be. Pascal was the guy that stepped up for this team offensively. And for Siakam, who is their OG within this core, and obviously with TJ McConnell too, the both those guys being the only players in that Pacers roster, mainly the guys in the rotation that are older than 30, for him to step up as the clear second option and elevate his game when needed to is huge for this Pacers team moving forward. So I can't wait to see what Indiana does in this offseason. Hopefully they can get better and be even more of a contender, because I really like this Pacers team and how they played this season. I think they're, as a neutral, they're one of the most entertaining teams to watch throughout the year, and I'm hoping that continues, and I'm hoping they have more playoff success down the line moving forward. Okay. All right. Our last segment, final one, main segment. We're going to do a countdown, top 5 list. And I said this before at the beginning. We're going to run down the top 5 teams to challenge the Boston Celtics, the defending NBA champions, for the title next season. So let's get into this real quick. I got the list right here. Gonna do a rundown. And yeah, man, I'm excited. I hope y'all too as well. Alright, starting at number 5. A good amount of names could have been in this position. Obviously, Milwaukee, Philly, even Miami, they can be in that list. But when it came down to it, for this team in this spot, I picked them because of the amount of flexibility they had within the roster and the opportunities that they could potentially have in this period to further improve their rotation moving forward. And the team that I picked was Philly. the 76ers. And I understand if people are saying, why didn't y'all pick Milwaukee? Why didn't you pick Miami to be in this list? I understand that completely. But when it comes to Philly, out of all the potential contending teams, they're at the very top of a list when it comes to their flexibility within their roster. When it comes to their salaries and contracts, they're completely off the books. Only out of the rotation so far, they have Joel Embiid, obviously, Paul Reed, and Ricky Council IV. The only players, those three, that are under contract right now. Obviously, you have the Tyrese Maxey deal, which they're going to give it to him, obviously, and he deserves the Tyrese Maxey. He had a phenomenal year last season. Was very huge in the playoffs. They're going to have Tobias Harris off the books. Thank God. Buddy Hield's going to be off the books. Batum's going to be off the books. Covington's going to be off the books. All those guys made well over $10 million and up last season. And for Philly, for the first time since the 2018 season, they're going to have the most flexibility within the roster. And that's huge when you already have your top two guys who could potentially contend for a championship with Embiid and Maxey. Hopefully Embiid can be completely healthy towards the start of the season when that comes along. And for Philly, you have all this cap space. You have picks remaining too down the line. And you can make some fireworks happen. Now, I think a potential factor when it comes to the rebuilding portion is Daryl Morey and his abilities as a GM, because last year I think the job with what he did building this team was poor. And you can clearly see with Embiid being out for a good part of the season, where Philly without him, they looked like a non-playing team, a lotto team. And in the playoffs too versus New York, the Knicks, when Embiid was off the floor, they couldn't keep up with the Knicks. They couldn't play. They got outbeat. And so for Daryl Morey in the Sixers front office, your main objective this season is to get a competent enough roster around Joel and Maxey to where if Embiid is out for a good period of the season, which it's almost a guarantee at this point, no offense, your main job is to acquire enough assets, enough quality rotational players to soften the blow when he eventually gets injured. So I can't wait to see what they'll do in this off-season period. I know they recently announced, well, from rumors within sources, they've gone away from Paul George being one of their top free agency targets, which I honestly thought Paul George would go there. But we'll just have to see which players they can get for this team moving forward this year. So I can't wait to see how that pans out. All right, enough about Philly. Let's move on to number 4. And at number 4, I have the New York Knicks in that spot. I think right now, New York, with the pieces they have, obviously with Jalen Brunson, hopefully Julius Randle can be completely healthy when he does come back next season. OG Anunoby is probably, actually, it is their biggest priority, re-signing him to a long-term extension. He has a near $20 million player option that he can opt in or not, which he likely won't this offseason. If they can re-sign him, that would be huge for them moving forward. But within this unit, you also have guys like Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo, huge supporting pieces that are crucial to their success for this team. Bojan, he has an expiring deal, $19 million. He wasn't good when healthy being acquired from Detroit. Maybe they can move off from him in this offseason. Isaiah Hartenstein, he's gonna be an unrestricted free agent. He's gonna demand a lot of money. I'm not sure if they can re-sign him to a long-term extension. I don't think they will, just because of the amount of money he wants, and you already have a lot of players that are under contract within that Knicks unit. But in the meantime, if you can keep the main core of Hart, DiVincenzo, Anunoby, Randall, Brunson, with how good that team looked post Anunoby trade with everybody healthy, they're the best defensive team in the league by far. Very effective unit. They can still contend in the East as the top 3 team moving forward. Now the injury bug, especially when it comes to the playoffs, that's still at play. Granted, with Tibbs leading the way, it was very unfortunate with how the Knicks injury luck was. A lot of key guys went down, freak injuries, a whole lot. But on paper, a completely healthy Knicks team can possibly be the biggest threat to Boston moving forward. They have the superstar in Brunson. They have the second option in Randall. They have elite role players in Hart and Divo. And if they, and Anunoby as well, if they keep Hartenstein too, that would be a great bonus. Miles McBride was phenomenal off the bench too. He had a great season, a career year. A very cheap contract too, only $4 million a year for the next 3 seasons. They still have a very good chance of being a contender within the East, and especially towards contending for a title next season. So when it comes to the Knicks and their development as a contender, I think they're on a trajectory of continuing to be one of those teams in that conversation moving forward. Moving on to the top 3 on this list, we're going to have the Timberwolves in 3rd. Not a lot of roster flexibility within this unit, but when it comes to this team, they already got a very talented squad. Obviously, you have Ant leading the way, him solidifying himself as a superstar, even borderline superstar in this league. Who knows how he can develop in the next coming years. You have Karl-Anthony Towns as a second option. Rudy Gobert had one of his best seasons defensively within this unit. Other pieces as well, in Naz Reid, in Nickeil Alexander-Walker, in Kyle Anderson, in Jaden McDaniels. Very good role players on that end. It was a little bit of a surprise to see how this team panned out, especially with all the drama around them last season too, for them to make the Western Conference Finals this year and beating the previously defending champs in Denver along the way. It was a huge step for this team moving forward, and I know they're in the West, and the West consistently changes year in, year out, especially with the amount of talent that conference has. But with this unit that they currently have, I still got them being a very elite group and another team that can be a better matchup for Boston when it comes to them potentially meeting in the finals down the line. Hopefully, when it comes to Mike Conley, I love Mike Conley. He's been great for this unit, but he's not getting any younger. Hopefully they can get a long-term replacement moving forward that they desperately need, because Monte Morris and Jordan McLaughlin in that bench depth unit, that's not going to cut it at all. If they can get a good long-term option for Mike Conley, that would be great for this team. But as of right now, Minnesota is still primed to make another deep playoff run next season. Now we move on to the top 2. At number 2, I'm going with OKC, especially now with them acquiring Caruso. Already got the playoff experience under their belt, got a taste of the playoffs. SGA has proven himself to be a playoff performer when it matters the most. J-Dub was inconsistent. He wasn't great in the series versus the Mavericks, but he is still on the rise. He can improve down the line as a player. You still got Chet after his first year, was a depoy candidate, can still have a ton of room to grow as an offensive threat. You already got your young big three. You already got a vast amount of quality role players. While Mark Daigneault had a very poor showing against the Mavs, I thought Jason Kidd outplayed him when it came to the head coaching battle. He is still one of the best head coaches in this league. The amount of improvement and development with this unit over the past couple of seasons is a huge indictment on his coaching abilities. And you add all those together, especially with the amount of draft picks that they still have, the amount of first rounders, they're going to be a massive threat throughout the rest of the league for these next few years. And that's very scary, especially when you add the fact that this team's so young too. They're one of the youngest teams in the league by far. And you already got a superstar in SGA. You already got great second and third options in both J-Dub and Chet. Great role players, great head coach, great culture. Already got playoff experience. They're going to be a problem. They're going to be an absolute problem. And I knew it was going to be the case heading into last year. I had them finishing top 4 in the West. I knew they were going to take that leap. And they did it with high-flying colors. And they even went beyond that, being 2 games away from reaching the conference finals in the West. All right. Last but not least, number 1, when it comes to challenging the Boston Celtics, is Denver. I think it's an obvious pick for them to be in this spot right here. They got the best player in the world, potentially the best duo in the world in both Murray and Jokic. They already got their main core tied with this team moving forward long term. And Aaron Gordon and MPJ. KCP, kind of shaky right now. He can opt out of his player option this summer, get even more money. There are a lot of teams that need a guy like KCP within their rotation as well. So he's going to be a huge piece within free agency. So I'm not sure if they're able to keep him or not, KCP. But for this Denver team still, I know they have the depth issues. They still got to address the backup point guard, the backup big scenario. Reggie Jackson and DeAndre Jordan being 2 of your most experienced guys in the bench unit. That's obviously not going to cut it. But for this Denver team, if they can keep KCP, for them to still have the starting 5, and if we can get more development from guys like Payne Watson, from guys like Christian Brown moving forward, I'm saying moving forward a lot, excuse me. But if the young guys, including Julian Strawther too, there's still going to be a problem within the entire league. I think when it comes to clutch and crunch time, they're still one of the more effective teams when it comes to those scenarios. Obviously, they got Jokic still being the best player in the world, the consensus best player in the world. They're still going to be around. Now, they still have a lot of things to improve when it comes to their roster. But throughout the NBA landscape, Denver are consistently going to be amongst those top 5, top 3 teams in the league for the next couple of seasons. And it is what it is. There it goes again, moving forward. I'm not going to lie, saying moving forward, it's much better than saying like a bunch of stuff like that as a podcaster. So we still got to improve on that end, diversifying our selection of words. But I'd rather have that than just having a bunch of ums, and like a bunch of likes when it comes to talking and discussing my opinions with these episodes. But getting that out the way completely, that's my top 5. My list is done. Boston, when it comes to betting odds, they're the clear favorite to winning the championship again. Now, when it comes to going back to back for the Celtics team, they're still going to have their main core. Hopefully, Derek White is going to re-sign long term. He should be able to re-sign long term. But the NBA in this modern era, going back to back, it's a very hard thing to do. And you got to factor in the injury rate. You got to factor in the amount of dynamic changes within these rosters over and off season and other factors like that. As a Celtics fan, I would absolutely love it if we were able to repeat, but I just know how hard it is to do that in the modern NBA. Like, we've had in recent history 6 different teams win the NBA Finals since 2018. And that's for a good reason. Because of all of these changes, because of all of these dynamic factors when it comes to winning a chip in this era. So it's going to be hard for this Boston team to do it again. We said that about Denver. The general consensus was going to be that Denver's going to repeat this year. And obviously, in the second round, they went up against a team that matched up against them very well in Minnesota. And as a result, they blew that lead at home in Game 7. And Minnesota was able to slay the Dragon. They were able to beat them in the second round and move on to the conference finals. So, it's a very hard thing to do to repeat. Very hard thing to do. But, yeah, man, that's pretty much it. Went through everything I needed. I had a lot of fun doing this. If you guys are still here, make sure to like and leave a comment. Subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Make sure to follow our other social media platforms as well on Instagram and TikTok, all to handle at Lunchroom Debates. Make sure to show love on there. We are less than 150 away from 1K on YouTube. I'm going to keep saying this again. I'm going to keep saying this until we actually reach it. Our goal before the summer's over is to reach 1K. We got to do it. We have to do it. And we need y'all help to do so. But yeah, man, that's going to be it for me pretty much. Hope y'all have a blessed day. Happy late Father's Day to all the great fathers out there. Happy Juneteenth. I checked out the Kendrick Lamar concert in Inglewood this past few days. It was a phenomenal watch. Lots of great music, lots of great performances, especially from him as well. So, again, happy Juneteenth to all of y'all. And yeah, man, signing off. Peace. I gotta move to the control panel to fade to black. It's kind of weird, but stay with me.